Hi everybody, welcome to a new month. I know this is my first video for this month and the last video for the year. Thank you so much for being with me throughout the year, and today, as promised, I am going to do the wholesale supplies video, the one where you can buy your sewing supplies in bulk. So a disclaimer is I probably have not exhausted the list for sure. The ones I am going to share on this list are companies I have interacted with, mostly through trade shows. So I've interacted with them, I've spoken to them, so because of that I am 100% sure I've not exhausted the list. I'm sure there's so many other places where you could source for a lot of materials that I've not mentioned here. Majority of them are going to be for fabric. The thing you need to understand about the people who manufacture fabric here in Kenya is majority of the fabric they manufacture is for a lot of public service things, e.g. school uniforms, uniforms for guards, chef uniforms, basically fabrics that are used all the time. So you'll find that their primary fabric that they produce is that type. Hotels also need a lot of fabrics for tablecloth curtains and things like that. We have local fabrics such as kikois and Masai shukas that are used in various ways, whether you're making an outfit out of them or you are using it for home decor or furnishings and upholstery and things like that. We also have people who make protective gear and things like that. Then we also have, I think there's only one company that I'm 100% sure make labels. I know there are some people who make labels, but I'm not sure they make them here. They could be making them in China and importing them. I'm not 100% sure, but I know one because I visited the factory. So just keep that in mind when you check out this list. Also, there are some of these companies do make fabric for individuals, but they do have a minimum order quantity. So you need to find out what the minimum order quantity is. You might not be able to afford to do large amounts. The smaller manufacturers might be able to do smaller amounts. I'm going to mention them in the video, so just watch it and hopefully it will be very, very informative and very helpful. So before we get all that, I am going to just tell you maybe strategies of how to engage manufacturers, because it's a different ballgame from just walking into a shop and buying fabric. So far I'm sure so good. Let's get into it and welcome. So these are the 10 strategies for finding local suppliers for buying things in bulk, buying things wholesale, or having things produced for you. Of course, the first thing you need to do is make a list. You need to identify exactly what you're looking for. The experience of finding certain things is very different. Example, if you're looking for machines, you may be looking for even a specific brand of machine, so finding the machine might not be as difficult because you're just going to look for that specific brand. But if you're looking for fabric, it's a whole process, so you might have to check different companies that make that fabric and see the quality and all that. So it's a whole thing. You have to check the weight of the fabric, you have to check the thread count, you have to check the weave or whatever. There's so many things. Just make a list of what it is you are looking for. And of course, apart from the list, you need to consider the quantity you require, because I guess that is also going to factor in who you are going to source from. The second one is to research the wholesalers. So the main ways I have managed to get wholesalers or talk to wholesalers or engage with them is through trade shows. So there are usually many trade shows that happen in Kenya, so once in a while I do attend them. Some of them are not even fashion specific, they're just for manufacturers, and you find that sometimes you find fabric suppliers there and machine as well, machine suppliers. Or online on their directories. So in my research, it was very difficult to find. A lot of these companies do not actually have websites. Some of them do, some of them don't. I guess it's because some of them are very old and they're already used to doing business a certain way. But that's, I guess it's normal, and I will not be surprised if they're just registered in various wholesaler supply websites instead of just having their own websites. So those are the ways I would definitely suggest you do. It's very, very difficult sometimes to get all the information you want by email or online. Sometimes that helps when you've already put in the order. Sometimes I've been forced to go physically to some of these places or have a contact person that can easily fulfill my order. So some of them are a real process. The one I've engaged with the most is the one that does clothing labels, because I've had my labels done with them, and I just have a contact person that I usually talk to and they make the labels. And at least you do the design process through email and it's delivered. You never even have to go to the factory. But I have gone to that factory and I'll mention more about it when I share my sources. So the third way is check out the online directories. There's some specific online directories you should check because they usually have list of manufacturers, such as Kenya Chamber of Commerce would be a good one. Kenya Association of Manufacturers is another good one, and so many other associations. Those specific websites would have the list of manufacturers and their contact details. I'm assuming they do update them on a regular basis, and yes, so that would be another way. So I've mentioned local trade shows are a great way to meet the manufacturers because you can talk directly to them and get the information. And there are some very specific trade shows, especially if they are for your industry. At that time you find that you will find way more people. A lot of these trade shows also have international suppliers. I have found some Chinese suppliers there, Indian suppliers. Those are the main two we import from, and also local East African, Madagascar and so on. You'll also find they come to those trade shows. So it's a great way even to compare prices between the Kenyan and the international ones, and also to get your sample swatch books. So definitely check out those trade shows. I would also recommend that you join industry associations, like I had mentioned earlier, Kenya Association of Manufacturers, because I'm assuming that by the time you are getting things in bulk, you're manufacturing. So it's good to become part of those bodies, or basically organizations that help you, even if you don't feel like you're directly benefiting from the association in terms of export or whatever. Meeting industry players is a very good way to utilize membership in the associations and things like that. So do check those out as well. Another benefit of being part of the association is that you keep up with market trends and keep up with just generally the new technologies and everything. Like I remember there's a trade show I attended and I found that they had started introducing energy saving industrial machines, so basically machines that make less noise and also use less electricity, which also helps with reduction of costs. I kid you not, that's not something I would have found on YouTube unless I was watching something with manufacturers, which is like very rare, or it's information it's very hard to come by even online, or unless you're following a particular brand of that make machines and things like that. There's some information that you get by interacting with people who sell them, because they're trying to sell you on why you should get those things. So definitely attend those trade shows. They really do help. After you have identified your manufacturer, do request for samples. It's very important that you have samples. If you are making clothes, the reason why you'll need a sample is that you need to do the laundry test. Because fine, someone will tell you my fabric is won't shrink, and if you iron it, it will not burn and all that. You need to do the burn test, the wash test. You need to know what you're going to put in your list of ingredients for care instructions, and you also need to be sure, especially because export is very, very strict. You have to be sure about what is inside the material, because sometimes manufacturers don't really disclose every single thing they've put in the fabric that they're selling to you. So it's very, very important that you get the samples and test it yourself to make sure that everything they claim that is actually possible. And also sometimes you can buy a sample size piece of fabric, maybe just to do one sample, just to test it and see the wear and tear, how it actually flows, before you commit to some bulk rolls of fabric for your production. Don't forget to compare prices. You need to compare prices. Apart from the price of the fabric itself, you need to compare other costs, shipping costs. Example, you might be getting cotton from Eldoret and getting cotton from Mombasa, and it's cheaper to transport the cotton from Eldoret, or or maybe from Mombasa. Maybe you have a shipping agent that you work with, whatever. So despite the fact that you are sourcing locally, you have to think about how you're going to get your products to you. A lot of these factories are not in Nairobi, but they do have offices in Nairobi where you could go and order and then pick it from their Nairobi office, or they drop it off at your workshop. Another thing you'll realize, at least here in Kenya, a lot of people who have workshops are close to where the manufacturers are, so that it's just easier to transport. It's very, very rare that they will ship fabric to a far off place. They do ship, but most people just prefer to be located near the manufacturer, so it's easier for them and to reduce costs. And generally, if you are like in an export processing zone or in a place where manufacturing has been designated for manufacturing, you'll find that the government sometimes subsidizes some of the costs, like electricity costs. It's easier to get labor because a lot of people are around that area. Tailors and machine repair people and whoever needs work, you find that they will usually around the same area. So that's something else to consider, especially when it comes to cost. Do negotiate. This is business, so it makes sense to negotiate. You have more power to negotiate if you actually did compare prices. So if you do check different people and what they're offering, you can negotiate and say, I got this other person and they're charging me this, can you give me less so that I can actually give you the work? Like, just negotiate, but be realistic, because manufacturers sometimes do not like working with smaller businesses because you negotiate too much and buy very little. So you can be able to probably negotiate better if you're buying in larger quantities. So either way, it never hurts to negotiate, but do negotiate. And it's always also just good to have those samples with you, because if you ever reorder the same fabric, you have a sample and you tell them exactly what you want, and you can always compare and contrast and make sure that they give you the same quality or an improved quality as well, in case that's what you want. Build relationships with these manufacturers. You find that the more you work with them, the kinder they are to you. I have noted that with the places I go buy materials and things like that over the years, it's easier for me to trust what I'm getting, because there'll be sometimes you go to a shop and they tell you, I don't think that's the type you like, that's not the one you usually buy, the one you usually buy will come next week, so just wait on it and things like that. So, and that's for retailers. So just imagine if you are a customer for wholesalers. Wholesale business is always very, very difficult, so it is important to just build those relationships. Find a contact person if you need to. Be friendly with the people who work there, and it always helps, even with your negotiation, and basically how you get served in the end. Lastly, do check certifications. This is something that a lot of us here overlook, because unless you're doing export, you might find that the certifications are not very important, some of them anyway, because we do have KEBS, which is a quality standard for us here. I don't know if KEBS really is used on clothing. I think some things maybe, some things not, but I think especially if you're going to export, there's so many certifications. I will write some of them here because I don't know, but you do Google, especially if you're exporting, you'll find that there are some countries that do not allow certain fabrics because of toxins that were used to create create the fabric, whether it was in the farming process or in the manufacturing process, you need to know, because sometimes you might have to change your whole design and buy a totally different fabric for that design. So the truth is, the design stage of manufacturing, the designing and sampling stage is usually the longest stage before you actually make things. So even when you are shipping and you've decided that that's the market you're targeting, you need to know if the materials you're using is allowed in that country and you're sure that people there actually wear what you're making. So I hope this list has been helpful, and now I would like to get into the list of manufacturers, which I'll do in voiceover form because I wanted to give you the contact information, and I'm sure you'll probably be able to take screenshots of the list and it will be helpful to you one way or another.
We start with Knit, which is a factory that makes beddings, toweling, yarn, woven fabrics. So they mostly manufacture for other people. They're based in Eldoret, and definitely a place where if you do want to make your own line of beddings and toweling, they would be the best place to check out. But of course, you can also just get fabric from them because they have woven fabric. I guess they also have a minimum quantity that they would produce for an individual. Next, there is Bedi. Bedi is based in Nakuru, and they do have offices in Nairobi, and they do all sorts of fabrics. I've seen them doing suiting fabric, plain cotton fabric, knits. They have books for fabric swatches. I've seen it. I didn't get from them, but I've seen it, and they do welcome people to check out their factory so you could actually see what they do. It's way more than, of course, what I've put up there, but the whole point is that you go there and see what they have, and their website will also give you a good idea of what else you could find. Alpha Rama is all things leather. Definitely you can also get from Bata, but I have visited Alpha Rama and I can recommend that they have all sorts of leather, and they do sell leather. Leather is sold differently. I think it's in square meters, so you have to go and check there. They have textured leather, they have plain leather, they have leather from different types of animals. Their tannery is on the outskirts of Nairobi, closer to the airport, so it's definitely worth checking out. Alpha Knit. They do embroidery for you if you want some embroidery design done on your fabric, but they do deal with a lot of woven fabrics, and they also make yarn. A lot of these factories do the same kind of thing, so you'll hear a lot of repetition, but there's a little bit of diversity and also a lot of similarity. So Alpha Knit is also worth checking out. Spin Knit, I'm more familiar with it because they make the robin thread, which is an acrylic thread used for making sweaters and stuff like that, but they do also do other fabrics for beddings and upholstery, were their main things in their website. So do check Spin Knit as well if you do need fabric. So if you need the Masai shukas, blankets you would use, especially in schools. I've seen they make a lot of those. Yes, and basically beddings and other things. So Spin Knit, that are based in Nakuru. Next is Spinners and Spinners. They also make yarn, specifically butterfly, which is also another acrylic yarn. They also make the Masai shukas and the kikois and all that. They make beddings, upholstery, and all sorts of fabrics, and definitely you could get them to make for you specialized fabric. Of course, they have their minimum quantity order, so it depends on their terms, and they are actually based a bit closer to Nairobi, outskirts of Nairobi, places like Ruiru. Yes. Thika Cloth Mills is actually a factory I've gone to. It's so huge. It's huge. They do specialize in cotton and poly cotton. They have an office in Westlands, but their main factory is in Thika itself. So we visited both. They do make all sorts of variety of cotton and cotton blend fabrics. So that means from your bed sheets to kangas to just fabrics you need in any weight and range. Even if you want khaki and all that, they really come through and they make them, but they of course need very large quantities. They really focus on bulk production, but if you go to their shop in Westlands, you can get smaller quantities. Sun Flag is the biggest of the factories because I know they have branches not only in Kenya, they have in Tanzania. I can't remember the other countries, but it has been there since 1937. So it has a lot of fabric. I know them specifically because they make stretch jersey, and a lot of people who make t-shirts and things like that, anything with stretch, probably get their fabric from Sun Flag unless they're importing. So they're very popular for those, but you could get all sorts of fabric from them, from cotton to the kikoi, kanga, upholstery fabric. You can get all sorts, so they're definitely also worth checking out. Pendeza Weaving is in Kisumu, and they do hand woven natural fiber fabrics, so mostly cotton because they're in a cotton growing area, but you could talk to them. They do less batches than some of these other companies we've talked about. They are more for specialized people, want specialized things. They do have a minimum order quantity either way, but they can do for you your own hand woven kind of fabrics. It will take time, of course, because it's hand woven, but they're definitely worth checking out, especially if you're really trying to go the environmentally friendly way. They are a good company to work with. Tosheka, the same. Main difference is that Tosheka actually were more known for silk. I think they have also started working with organic cotton, so they are also more smaller batches than the other factories. It's also more automated, a bit more automated, but still handmade, and you could also work with them to create all sorts of design, whether it's printed or woven into. It takes a bit of a process. They are in Machakos, and they do have tours where you can go and see their processes, which is very good if you want transparency. They allow people to go and see the process of how they do things, and they try as much as possible to use organic ways of printing and producing their fabrics. Rivertex is all the way in Eldoret, and it's a very big factory. It is a government parastatal, so a lot of it is funded by the government. They produce cotton, and they also do research on fabric, so it's generally a very good place for people who want to study more about the fabric, compositions of fabric, how fabric is made and everything like that. I haven't gone to it yet, but I visited their shop, their retail shop in Nairobi, where they do sell some of the products. They do a lot of kanga, upholstery fabric, like curtains and things like that. So they have various degrees and weights and widths of fabric, and you could order minimum quantity. And a lot of the shirts our former president wore were made from Rivertex in terms of the fabric. Oriental Mills is one I'm very familiar with. If you need zips, YKK zips specifically, if you need clothing labels, if you need trimmings, if you need sashes, if you need fleece, if you need threads and stuff like that, Oriental Mills has so many things, and their website works, so you could check out their website for all the products they produce. Going in person is even better, and they do make for people if they need specialized things, but of course they have a minimum quantity, but you might actually find that they have already what you're looking for. They also make elastic, so they do make a lot of things. It's definitely worth checking out to see what else you could get, and they are within Nairobi, so it's easy for people within Nairobi to go there and check it out. Amido Center is your source for all things Singer machines. Yes, there are other people who sell Singer machines, but they are the official distributors of Singer machines. They do have other machines that are not for sewing, but if you want Singer machines specifically, from servicing to just buying, purchasing, all sorts of machines from industrial to domestic to even scissors, anything branded Singer. Amido Center is your place. They have several branches across the country. I think they have 2 branches in Nairobi, so they are worth checking out. They've been there for ages and ages, so do check them out. Lastly, I'll mention SoTech that are on River Road. Their shop is actually on River Road, and I think they're the official distributors of Juki machines, and they do have other brands of machines from domestic to industrial sewing supplies. They have a lot of machine related supplies as well, mostly. So officially, I would definitely advise that you source from them if you want to buy a lot of machines for a workshop. Of course, as I mentioned last time, that there are very many people who sell machines. I just don't know if they really source for people to get machines in bulk. Of course, there are people who import directly from manufacturers abroad and bring the machines in Kenya in bulk, but if you just want for a smaller workshop, I would recommend SoTech or of course Singer.
I hope you found the video helpful, and I hope the information has been helpful as well. The process of engaging wholesalers is the same as well if you are engaging a supplier from overseas. It's relatively the same. The only difference is you have to find out if the supplier from overseas actually ships in Kenya. And the other thing is definitely use a shipping agent. It's better to just source from places where there are already Kenyan shipping agents. China and India have that in plenty, because we do a lot of importation from those countries for fabrics and those kind of supplies. So you need to first check if there's shipping agents, because it's easier to work with a shipping agent, as well as if they are willing to ship to you. A lot of them will tell you they have free samples and they would expect you to be shipping for the samples. I have gotten sample books from China for zips, and mostly zips because I was looking for a particular kind of zip. I tend to just use locally available fabric, but sometimes the kind of quality zip I'm looking for I don't find. I've also engaged someone from Madagascar who does labels, very beautiful labels, but the shipping cost was going to be too high because they use DHL, and I didn't want to use DHL, and we don't have a shipping agent there, so the shipping costs were too high. So I decided to just support a local manufacturer who charges more for the labels, can still produce good quality, but the charge of their labels was high. But the Madagascar, the charge for their labels was low, but the shipping cost made it high. So you have to do a lot of price comparison. So those are just the things you have to check out when you are getting things done. Labels are things most designers need, whether you are doing large quantity or small quantity. So I hope Oriental Mills is going to be a manufacturing partner you will use. And they do produce pretty fast, but they're not busy. So be patient and reach out. So that's all from me. Thank you so much for being with me this year. Thank you. Welcome to the new subscribers. I hope you've been enjoying the content. There's so much for you to watch from 2 years ago, because I think I started this around 2 years ago. And I will see you next year. And happy holidays, Merry Christmas. Have a wonderful festive season, and I'll see you in the new year. Bye.